This is Pride Month, and like most social justice causes, America's biggest corporations cannot wait to show their deep commitment to the cause. Just look at AT&T, CVS, Deloitte, Verizon, Walmart, Wells Fargo. They all changed their Instagram or Twitter to show solidarity. In fact, CVS changed their entire company website to show pride. Now let's look at their actions, which perhaps speak louder than their words. Let's look at where those same companies put their money. CVS, who along with many other big names like Walmart, AT&T, Comcast, they boast a 100% rating from the Human Rights Campaign's Corporate Equality Index, which measures workplace policies and, quote, public commitment to the LGBT community. Well, those same companies have put more than $10 million towards both state and federal lawmakers with a 0% rating from the same group, the Human Rights Campaign, including dozens of members of Congress in Washington, D.C., as well as people serving at the local level, like Texas state senators who are co-sponsors of a bill that would criminalize parents' decision to let their kids get gender-affirming medical care, and a North Carolina state senator who was an early supporter of the bathroom bill. So, probably haven't heard that, have you? Because the pride groups have not exactly taken these companies to task after giving them so much support. Late Supreme Court Justice, former clerk Ian Samuel, with us now. I guess, in a way, hypocrisy at the corporate level shouldn't surprise us any more than at the political level, right?
Yeah, no, it's not a surprise. It is pretty rich. And I love this month of the year for many reasons, but one of which is I love seeing the companies that turn their logos rainbow, like the actual Pinkerton company, the famously violent union-busting firm. They tweeted out something in support of Pride Month. So it's like, yeah, they're very in favor of rights for gay and lesbian people, unless those people want to form a union, in which case they'll shoot you. Lockheed Martin, right, very in favor of gay and lesbian rights, unless you happen to be on the receiving end of a drone strike, in which case, too bad. And so I can't even really call it hypocrisy because it's obviously just a branding exercise.
Well, it's
they put this stuff
right?
on their website.
Lockheed Martin, who's more than happy to sell to countries that lock up or kill gays and lesbians. I'm thinking about selling arms to Saudi Arabia, and companies that are more than happy to buy goods made with Chinese slave labor and Uyghurs that are in concentration camps, but then they'll put a pride logo on there. Why does a group like Pride, why do these communities not come back and fight back and say, if you want to co-opt our brand for yours, you have to have our values?
Well, I think that for one thing, there are people on the LGBT left who are saying some of these things, right? But groups like the Human Rights Campaign need to be understood as representing essentially a kind of elite professional managerial class for whom they are actually, as between, let's say you're a rich executive at Lockheed and you're also gay. As between the choice of some trans bathroom bill that you may find a little distasteful, but it's probably not going to impact your day-to-day life that much because you live in a major city, and a giant estate tax cut that might be the difference in $10 million for your children when you die, it's not really that hard of a call. And so there are plenty of people, even gay people, who are going to order their preferences that way. Just like CVS, yeah, they might be perfectly happy to change the logo, and they're certainly happy to hire gay people and treat them well as they treat any of their workers at least. But if it's about, regulating the pharmacy industry, then, well, get serious. Of course, we'll vote in whoever we need to vote in. And that's just how these things work.
Where along the lines did companies become expected or become acceptable for companies that used to be in the business of making money for their shareholders now take part in, as you sort of say, the elitism of social justice for certain groups that is helpful to their PR image?
Well, I think there's a couple of things that drive it. And right, I remember about 2 years ago when Fruit by the Foot tweeted Black Lives Matter, I was like, boy, this is a really strange world that we live in, even though, of course, that's a true statement. I think what it has to be in part understood about is competing for talent, right? So if you are a company or a law firm or a university or whoever, and you want to compete for the elite talent, the top managers, the top people, you're going to want to send a message that if they come and work for you, that this is the kind of workplace you're going to feel comfortable in. This is not a place where your, sexual identity or your race or anything else about you is going to be some kind of problem. I mean, you can think about the CIA's super woke ID politics ad from a few months ago that you may remember. This is about, I think, trying to retain certain elite talent because there's a lot of it. While on the other hand, if you're as we've said, if you're a worker or some guy living in Saudi Arabia and you're gay, well, they don't have any interest in you because they don't need your talents. And so they're perfectly happy to bomb you into the Stone Age.
Flip that around, or to sell weapons to the country that and protect the regime that's going to hang you. If you flip that around, though, how much of this has to do with the executives liking to feel good about themselves when they go to their parties in the Hamptons in the same way you think about what television networks are going to carry January 6th hearings in prime time, and the head of Disney really doesn't want to have to answer for why ABC didn't do it when he's out at the July 4th party?
I think that there is a significant social pressure in that kind of because remember, these need to be understood in terms of a little bit of class politics too. And there's always a certain manners among the elite, certain social positions and attitudes that you are expected to have, whether that was in 20th century, middle of the 20th century, you were expected to be a Protestant. Now it is a different set of kind of elite signaling things, but there is a significant element of that. And look, I'm sure also a lot of this is heartfelt, right? It's just not heartfelt enough to make a dime's worth of difference on the bottom line of these companies. When push comes to shove.
Real quick, I got 30 or 40 seconds. You talk about the bottom line. Should any of these companies worry that there is going to be a backlash either from the groups who say, look, if you want to use our symbol and you want to co-opt us, then you can't be supporting these politicians, or a backlash from people on the right who say, I'm not going to go to CVS anymore? You can't say I'm not going to have a cell phone because it's all the cell phone companies. But is there ever a backlash, or does the elitism just sort of win out no matter what?
Well, I think that the backlash against the sort of rainbow logos and stuff like that, I think that ship has sailed. It's not that everybody in the United States has the same opinion about the rights of gay and lesbian people, but I think that there is a sort of certain grudging acceptance among people who might be more right-wing that, look, society, the majority position is this now, and I'm a dissenter from that position, but this is one of the things I'm going to have to swallow. Now, the other question is more interesting because you do see pressure campaigns sometimes against companies that are funneling their money to politicians like this. And it's a question of how organized and how seriously the sort of left organizations are going to take it. So far, we haven't really seen that. And especially if you're a company like Lockheed, what are they going to do about it? You're supplier of weapons to the government. You're CVS, you basically have a monopoly on pharmacy.
Right. I think about a statement from Google. A contribution to a candidate doesn't mean that Google agrees with that candidate on every issue. In fact, we may disagree strongly on some issues. ... But we really need their vote because they're on whatever committee regulates us, thus it's okay.
Exactly. If these guys are going to push off antitrust scrutiny of Google, then they can vote on other stuff kind of however they want, and Google may strongly disagree, but they don't disagree enough not to get them elected. And if you are a sort of normal person who's a gay or lesbian person who's the object of some of these bills, that is pretty cold comfort. Like, well, at least I've got this rainbow logo. Thanks for nothing.
Thanks for nothing, Lockheed. Good way to end it. Ian, appreciate it. Thank you. It's good to see you. Yeah, excellent analysis. Thanks for watching. Go to newsnationnow.com to find NewsNation on your television provider. And don't forget to subscribe. Click the red button to get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.